start the show. Hello, everybody, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. Welcome to the Positively Awesome Wrestling Show. It is yours truly, Jimmy Bay, and I'm joined, as always, by the man to the right of me, Albert. Albert, how the heck have you been, and how have you been enjoying your wrestling this past week?
I've been good. Wrestling's been fun. I have not watched SmackDown yet, so that is one thing I will throw out to everybody. So if this has nothing to do with what we're talking about today, so that really works out. But I didn't get a chance to watch, but I've been hearing good things. I actually heard that there's a couple of a really good tag team match. So
yeah, I have not watched SmackDown either. So
we'll see. Yeah,
there we go.
That's on the agenda for me at some point today.
So also, it's not Thursday or Wednesday night; it is Saturday morning.
It is.
So things just happen, and it's a holiday weekend over here in the States. So just whatever, just go with the flow. That's what I'll say. And you are absolutely right. The color is black.
Told you.
On my screen, Positively Awesome Wrestling is in blue. On his, it's on black, and then on the thing, it's black. So my computer is just being a butthead.
But it's like I said on X earlier. Things just real life gets in the way sometimes. But
yeah.
We immediately thought to ourselves, okay, we could just let the week go by, or I was like, hey, let's do it on the weekend. Why not? I have a 3-day weekend. Why not? I can take an hour out of my weekend to talk to you guys about wrestling. And we got a cool show today too.
It's much appreciated. And yeah, I'm having to kind of maneuver a few the shows around, because I did the Friday Nitro review on Tuesday this past week. And then I didn't do it Friday this week. I had to do it Saturday, literally right before this show. So, yeah, I'm just going to start moving things around just to make sure we do get the shows in, because I need to talk wrestling. It's my therapy. So, hit these comments. He's got an awesome mug. We'll hit these comments real quick, and then we will get into the show. Hello, Courtney. Thank you for joining. Hello, Ron. I saw you said you're sorry you missed us on the last one, but hey, you could just go back and rewatch it. That's the beauty of it all, and you're here with us now, so it's all good, baby. Nick is here. What is up, Nick? And he says he's about to watch SmackDown. No spoilers. He said he turned off Friday Nitro to join this live. And again, much appreciated. Much appreciated. PAWcast now has soothing spa music. Again, therapy, baby. We're your therapists with wrestling. How about that? Don't take our advice on anything. The Saturday podcast. Don't get used to that. I don't want to get used to doing Saturday podcasts.
No, definitely not. Hey, listen, for this week, this worked out perfect for the both of us. I didn't mind this at all. As a matter of fact, I think I suggested Saturday morning because mean, hey, when everybody's up, you're having your coffee, you're having your breakfast, maybe you're cleaning your houses, your apartments real quick. That's my usual Saturday routine. So just do it with us.
Yeah. So much appreciated. Hey, I'm just keep on ticking. I don't even got caffeine in me, baby. It's all natural, like Lex Luger. Oh, yeah. Yeah, no.
Yeah, that was the wrong guy to use. And
now to the show. We are here to talk about. We did the men's Mount Rushmore earlier this year, and now we decided, hey, it's time for the women to have their moment. And since the Women's Evolution pay-per-view is literally next weekend, what better time to do it? So we are going to do the women's Mount Rushmore, our own individual one here. If you disagree with us, you're wrong. These are objective lists. So with that,
of course,
same criteria as last time. We're going to do one for the greatest superstar of all time, one for the best character of all time, one for character work of all time. I'm sure me and Albert are going to disagree wholeheartedly on this one. I already see it coming. The best in-ring worker of all time, and then the greatest all-around total package. There's another Lex Luger. Bro, I'm turning into a Lex Luger fan, so I'm going to start using these little puns a lot.
So
I can't believe this is happening.
So this is
total package of all time.
This is something I wanted to bring up. I wanted to actually talk to you guys. I know, like I've been watching the Nitro reviews, and you've been talking about your love for Lex Luger. I grew up as a big Lex Luger mark. Like Luger was like my dude back in when I started. So I watched WWF, obviously as it, as it was on. My dad actually really preferred WCW more than he did WWE.
Smart man.
Yeah. Listen, he hated Hulk Hogan and he loved WCW.
Smart man.
Yeah. He's the blueprint of what me as a wrestling fan. He's also like the first internet wrestling fan ever. Before there was an internet, he hated all the good guys, loved the bad guys. But Luger was like my guy, and there was the point where in 91 or 92, Luger turns heel on Sting, and I was heartbroken because those were like my two favorite wrestlers, and I was literally like as a kid, like I was like very, very upset about that whole heel turn. I remember, I think Luger turned. He was managed by Harley Race at the time, and he came out like wearing these robes and stuff. And I was like, man, he looks so cool, but I hate him so much. Like, and then when he turned babyface, like he left, goes to WWE, I was really excited. And when he was babyface again, when he came back to WCW, I was really excited. But now you guys are getting close to the heel turn stuff now, right?
Well, he's technically had the heel turn because he joined the Dungeon of Doom, but he's not really part of the Dungeon of Doom. He's just with Jimmy Hart.
Right, Jimmy Hart's just his manager randomly, right?
Yeah, it's all good stuff. And again, I was telling Nick earlier today on the show we just did that my whole thing with Lex was I was so pro NWO that I hated everyone that wasn't NWO, with the exception of DDP, which is that just a testament to how good DDP was. So that was my thing. But everyone that I know, like as far as the WCW nerds, they all like love Lex. So I'm glad I'm going back and watching it, seeing it through some fresh eyes and saying like, okay, yeah, everyone's right. Lex actually is really good for that time period. 100%. I enjoy him.
Yeah.
Since I started watching WCW at the time that Luger was a top WCW babyface. Yeah. And then he had that moment where I just really hated him. Like he dethroned Hogan and I'm like, you suck, bro. And I'm glad it was very short-lived. I was glad it was short-lived. Now I'm probably gonna be like, I was dumb.
I love that. That's one of like my biggest fandom moments ever. I remember we went to Sesame Place. I don't remember why. It was a very random vacation. We went to Sesame Place. I remember watching Luger win the world title in the hotel room from Hogan. And I ran out of my bedroom into my parents' bedroom. My mom was pissed because I woke them both up screaming, Lex Luger just won the WCW title. But yeah,
it was one of the great Nitro moments of all time.
Yeah,
I'm pro NWO. Yeah. And just this last WCW comment before we go, he said, "Cry, bro." I loved it. I danced and danced and danced, baby. And then if I remember correctly, so I must. This would check out that he was being forced to kind of do heel stuff because of Hart, and Jimmy Hart has his best interest. He's trying to get him to become the world champion. So he sold his soul. That whole thing, but
right? Because we're leading up to the cage match, right?
We're leading up to Starrcade '95, so it's the triple threat. It's the triangle match.
Okay,
Luger, Flair, and Sting wrestle to see who gets to take on Macho Man for the world title at Starrcade.
If you haven't seen it, just because it needs to be witnessed. There is a dungeon. I think it's like the and Hulkamania cage match.
I'm watching it. Yes, I'm going to probably live stream my reaction while watching it.
Please let me know when you do, because
if it's the same cage match I'm thinking of that Nick was telling me about, I'm definitely live streaming my reaction.
I can tell you right now, I know Nick well enough. Yes,
it sounds like the kind of stupid fun that I love.
Oh, it's ridiculous, and I loved it as a kid. I loved it. Now I'm like, this is the most convoluted crap that anyone's ever tried. None of it makes sense.
Bingo, boom, yes.
Nick, this is why I love you, dude.
All right. Now back to the show. We are going to start with, I think, the one that we probably agree with the most. The one I think we're probably going to agree with. Okay. I'm going to start off with the biggest superstar of all time in women's wrestling for the first spot on our women's Mount Rushmore. With that said, I'm going to go I'm going to go first because I'm pretty sure everyone knows my answer. It's Becky Lynch. There's no other answer to this. I'm sorry if you disagree. There's nobody in the history of women's wrestling that has been better at elevating the talent that she's working with. She won the first main event, or the only main event that the women have had at WrestleMania, which is a tremendous deal if you've been watching wrestling longer than 15 years. That's an insane thing to think about, that a woman main evented WrestleMania, and not a night one of 2 night things. It was a one night event that Becky Lynch won the main event. So that's a big deal. Then I don't know if there's ever been a draw that was as big as Becky Lynch was when she was on the man run. Like, she literally was a draw to the level of people. I don't care, crucify me. She clearly isn't Stone Cold, but if you take what she was doing at that time and just kind of compare it to what Stone Cold was doing at his time, it was the same thing, just on a different level. That's all. Stone Cold was up here, she's down here. I agree with that. I'm not going to argue against that. But she was the man. She was the one that was making the shows. She was the one people were excited to see. She was driving the shows. She literally was a huge deal. She was getting to the point where she was being over pushed, but nobody was upset.
Yeah.
Like, that's an insane thing to think about. She was forced into that Royal Rumble that she won. Nobody was upset about it. That's insane to think about, because I don't think any woman has ever been bulletproof in those scenarios to the point that Becky Lynch was. She's that good. And again, to me, the biggest thing is just the fact that she elevates people better than anybody. If you work in a program, Lyra Valkyria is a perfect example here, because people were like, she's missing something. She's missing something. She's missing something. In comes Becky Lynch, and all of a sudden, everyone loves Lyra now.
Yeah.
She has it. And I'm not saying Becky gave it to her, but she pulled it out of her. And that's what you need with your superstar. Stone Cold, the reason the Attitude Era was so hot is because he pulled the best out of everybody. John Cena was pulling the best out of everybody. Roman Reigns was pulling the best out of everybody. Becky Lynch was pulling the best out of everybody. And that's why she gets this. So that's my the greatest superstar in the history of women's wrestling. She gets my first spot on the Mount Rushmore. Let's see if Albert does actually agree with me here. Your turn.
So
Craig says, yo.
What's up, Craig? Thanks for joining. I agree with you in a way.
Oh my God. You them and boot him.
I have Becky as my all around, not as my greatest.
Okay.
So everything you just said about her is 100% true. Nick, exactly. She makes her opponents look amazing. She sells her ass off. She is great. Everybody was really upset that she came back as a heel, and I think it was the best thing for her, because she's great at the level of star that she is, and she's going to get cheers from people no matter what. She's still great at being grounded enough to make it that when she's a heel, she gets the babyface over, and you want to see her get what's coming to her. I think Becky has every single tool that you could ever want to put into a women's wrestler, and it makes the best wrestler.
Yeah.
So that's why, to me, I put her in the all-around category.
Okay.
For greatest, the only reason why I rank this one woman over Becky in terms of greatest, you'll see. You'll see in a second when I say who it is. I also just want to preface this by saying one thing: I'm not very proficient in Japanese women's wrestling, and there's a big portion of this Mount Rushmore stuff that we're going to talk about, and people are going to say, like, oh, you didn't mention this one or that one or this one, and I get that. These are obviously just our personal Mount Rushmore.
No, they're objective. Everyone else is wrong, man.
But I don't really. That's just not something I ever really dug into very deeply. So for my greatest all around, in my opinion, it's someone who had the most impact in wrestling as a woman, and I don't know if anyone's had more than Chyna. And I think that Chyna gets left off this list a lot, because Chyna wasn't a women's wrestler. Chyna was a wrestler who happened to be a woman and beat up guys, and was she's a first for everything. The first Intercontinental Champion to ever be a woman, the first woman to ever enter a Royal Rumble, the first woman to ever do this. Like, if you look up a list of like the first woman to most of those lists early on, it was Chyna. Chyna broke barriers. She was over more than every other. Almost most of the guys on the roster at times. No one. And this is going back to the 90s. This is 98, 99, 2000, where the world is completely different than it was back in the in the day that it is now, where we are sitting there and talking about how we are uncomfortable sometimes with intergender wrestling now. Back in the day, it's even worse, and no one even batted an eyelash. They were like, "Yeah, no, we believe it's time to wreck this dude."
Jeff Jarrett slammed Molly Holly with the greatest guitar shot of all time. And I loved him for it.
Yeah, the one he hits on Fabulous Moolah, who's 70 years old at the time, is unbelievable.
That was a babyface move. I don't care what anyone says.
Now, yeah. But yeah, I think that barriers were broken that may never be broken down again in pro wrestling by China. And for me, I just don't know if there's been anybody who has gotten. Becky is by and far my number 2. Like, and she's right there. But for me, I just think China really broke down barriers that no other woman in the history of pro wrestling ever has. I feel like we get into the conversations about women's wrestling, and China gets left off the list a lot because she's just we're not used to seeing her wrestle women. She wrestled men the majority of her career. So people think of women's wrestling and they're like, oh, well, what woman brought out the best in her female opponent? And it's like, China brought it out in her male opponents. You know, it's a really interesting dynamic for that. And that's why I really felt like we needed representation of China on this list.
So I'll say this before I created this dynamic that I'm going to use just for now on in all of wrestling as far as individuals. China was on mine, like, because she did break barriers. Like she was the first one to do it. I think, and again, putting Becky at number 2, that's fair. I think if you look at anybody, Becky's the only other one who really did break barriers on that level that China did. Again, with being the person that pushed the show. I can't think of another female in the history of the sport or business that pushed shows like Becky did. But China, again, you named a bunch of stuff, and I'm not mad at that. I'm not mad at that shout at all. That's actually not that bad. Because she doesn't get the love she deserves. It's 100%. And the reason WWE says she doesn't is absolutely bullshit. There you go. I'm talking bad about WWE. I do it from time to time.
Yeah.
If you can sell her toys, you can put her in the Hall of Fame.
Look, exactly. And my whole thing is that they mentioned Shotzi did her interview with Chris Van Vliet. I'm sorry, with Ariel Helwani, I believe. And she mentioned it during the interview, it was one of the two of them, that they almost didn't sign her because she had some explicit photos online. And it's like, guys, it's the 2025 now. We're in a place.
It's not the same world it was.
And we're in a place in time where if you type anybody's name into a search engine with AI running rampant, even stuff that isn't real is popping up now. I think that we live in a different place in time. I think that even if you go back and you search for her, even if that stuff pops up, the thing that's going to really pop up more is her wrestling career.
Yeah.
And that's really what she was celebrated for. This was just
it's a moment in time. It was, right. Jacob Fatu wouldn't get hired before because of his criminal history. Like, that's something they don't look at. Well, to an extent, I guess. I think because of who he is, that played a part. But I hope that they stop doing that, though, with the new regime. I still don't have faith that China will get her spot in the Hall of Fame because of the ties she has directly to Triple H and Stephanie, which is a damn shame.
Yeah.
But I think at least she got in as DX.
Right.
But that's just such like a silly consolation prize. Let me get these comments, and then we move to the next ones. We have Becky, and then we have China. I did not see that coming, but I'm not mad at it. Lou, yes, morning action. I'm trying to fit him in on this crazy, hectic, busy week. I didn't want to miss this one, especially since it's Women's Evolution's coming up, and this is the Women's Mount Rushmore. So
we couldn't leave you guys without a show for a week. Come on.
Bull Nakano. This is the second Bull Nakano mention. That's not bad. Yeah. I like Bull Nakano. I don't know enough about her to give her a spot, though. So I'm glad that you and Courtney have both given her a shout. That's great. He says you had a good choice there. Do I like Medusa? Nah, never really was a fan. I do like what she did with the title on TV, though. That was freaking awesome.
I think Medusa, again, was another one who was ahead of her time. She also wrestled a lot of the guys, too.
Here. That's what your buddy Craig here says. Medusa, unfortunately, broke at a time when wrestling wasn't mainstream, so as good as she was. That's unfortunate for her, but she did play an integral part in she was a step in the process. I'll give her that.
Right.
And again, dropping the title in the trash. That's beautiful. I loved it as a kid. Let's see. Lou says, F that. A list without Moolah and Mae Young is invalid. My list is not invalid. It is 100% accurate. And if you disagree with me, you're wrong.
Right.
Like, this is not subjective here. This is objective. This is the lists. Get it right, man. Mae Young should be on here for the table spot. Loved it as a kid. It's part of the reason why I think the Dudley Boys are like one of the greatest of all time. It's just the stuff they were doing. They were putting women through table, and I was like, yeah. Something was very wrong with me as a child.
Look, my thing is this. I think that, coming out of the other side of seeing all that, you would think that stuff would be damaging to us as children, but no, not at all. Like we're a lot more progressive than you would believe that you would be.
I honestly think it makes me appreciate women's wrestling so much more, because I genuinely like women's wrestling more than I like the men's wrestling, because they have to work so much harder for it. They just don't get the time and spot for it, and that's the unfortunate part. If China doesn't get in, Sean gets in himself, then it was never. Yeah, it's such a stupid excuse they try to use, and I don't like it. I don't like it at all. Out Laces Picola, happy Saturday. Hey, happy Saturday to you as well. And now we can move on to the next one. Which one do you want to go with next?
What do you want to do? Do you want to do all around? Being that I
heard you just did all around, I'll do my all around. And this one I think is the one that's going to shock you. I thought long and hard about this. Oh, real quick, superstars. I want to give a few other shout outs. Stable could have been on this list, even though her time was short. She was the first breakthrough star, I think. And that's something to look at. And honestly, as much as I hate her, I hate both of the next two. I can't deny their impact on what's going on in the world today in women's wrestling. Charlotte Flair and Mercedes Moné, Sasha Banks, whatever you want to call them. I wouldn't have disagreed with any of those choices. I think they did play parts. But
if you do this list in another 3 or 4 years, I think Rhea Ripley's right up there with.
Oh yeah, she's on the verge. She's on the verge.
Yeah, she's on her way there. And I thought about it, and I wanted to make mention that, especially in naming China, I think that the one who is kind of blazing that same path as her is someone like Rhea, where we have seen her in intergender matches before,
and Rhea. She just has it. We've talked about it forever. Like the fact that they're not pushing her as like the face of the company is kind of wild, because she has it.
Right.
Like,
because she should be.
Yeah. So I agree that in 5 years, she probably, if she continues on this trajectory, she's taking that spot. Like in my opinion, she is. Honorable mention to Sunny. I would say she's more of on the manager's list than she would be on the women wrestling list, because she didn't wrestle, did she?
Not really.
Yeah, I can't recall it. So
I mean, Sable did a little bit at least.
But Sable kind of like helped get it on TV more, even though it was trashy matches. She was the one that kind of showed them, hey, people are here to see the women too. They brought that women's championship back because of Sable. Yes, so that's why I would not disagree with that choice here. But all around, okay, here we go. I'm just gonna say it, Asuka. When I think of
interesting
the last, that tenure where she came in, it was all about the 4 horsewomen. Yeah. And 2 of those women were able to stand out. One was Alexa Bliss, because Alexa Bliss is really good, and Asuka, which is a shocking one, because if you look at the history of WWE and Japanese wrestlers, how many of them have been successful prior to Asuka? Not only was she successful, she's one of the most successful women's wrestlers of all time in WWE. Absolutely. She's done everything except for win Queen of the Ring. Her run in NXT is unmatched. It's just unmatched. When she cuts we look at all around. So in ring, I don't have to sell anybody on it. I think she has a style that separates her from the rest. Like literally separates her from everybody. Like, you watch, if they shadowed the people and you were watching, I think she's someone that you would be like, that's Asuka. No question about it. She just has that distinct style. She sells well. She bumps well. She's very giving. She puts people over, no issues. The biggest hurdle she had to cross was her English. And whereas she knows some English and all that, the way she's able to emote her energy and charisma, I don't know what she's saying, but I know what it's about. I can get what she's saying. If she's angry, I know it. If she's excited, I know it. If she's confident, I know it. If she's worried, I know it, just because of the way she presents her promos, even though I don't understand a word she's saying. And I think that is what she has done better than any of the other ones in the past, and why she has been as successful as she is. She survived Vince, for Christ's sakes.
She thrived under Vince.
That's insane to think about. So, yeah, Asuka all around. Becky isn't a bad shout because I've always said of the 4 horsewomen, she's the most complete.
Yeah.
But when I look back at the history of women's wrestling, I don't think anybody has checked the boxes on a higher level than Asuka, because Asuka's a better wrestler than Becky. I'm not gonna, that's not a thing. I think she sells better than Becky too. I think Becky just has her beat into other things that make her a superstar. So yeah, Asuka. I don't know how shocking that is, but yeah, I honestly think she is, and she's loved by everyone.
Yeah.
Like, she's one of the few people who doesn't get crapped on, which is insane to think about. So, and when they talk about, like, when you get the WWE hater tryhards going on there, talk about, oh, they wasted this person, they wasted this person. There's no way in hell they can ever try and present the case that Asuka was underutilized and wasted in WWE. And again, that's kind of insane to think about, that she's untouchable in that realm of the wrestling world, even though the IWC shouldn't be a part of the wrestling world. It is. We have to just live with it. But her being untouched, that is an achievement all on its own. So she still has it in her 40s.
Yes.
If you go back and watch her earlier stuff, it's fantastic. It's more brutal than the stuff now, but she doesn't need to do that anymore, and she's really good at it anyway. So yeah, Asuka's the one for the all around for me. She's just that damn good.
I think it's hysterical that this is now the second time that you've made an answer, and your answer was my answer, but to a different position on the Mount Rushmore list. I have
real quick.
Yeah.
I'll get these because they stack up quick. I want to get the comments.
Do it.
Table computing. She did, but she also wrestled, and she got in there with Mark Merrow. So again, she did wrestle. Right. It wasn't a lot. Again,
she had real matches against like Luna and Ivory, and
the Luna match at WrestleMania 14. I loved it.
Yeah, like, you know, so she did have real matches for that title. And Ron, I will say this: once the title got off of Sable, then it really went more off the rails than anything else. Yes, she did. She lost that championship in a bikini contest to Deborah. Like, let's not be. I'm not disagreeing with you. But at least there were points where they were actually in the ring and wrestling.
Yes. And again, just like Medusa, whereas you can't really credit Sable, again, broke barriers because she was the one that Vince saw and said, Vince saw her for, we know why, but he did see her and say, hey, maybe I should put women on more TV more. Regardless of how it was done, that was just the time it was, and people were more accepting of it, and that's what drove that part of the business at that time. Sable was the one that kind of put those eyes on it. She became a breakthrough star, where like it wasn't just wrestling that she was a star. She was a star outside. The Playboy stuff got her there. Like, she was a person
she was a crossover star
to come see. So that's why I would accept that answer. She, like Medusa, she was a stepping stone, and I think she played a huge part in women just getting more TV time. Asuka is the best Japanese crossover star in WWE history. Yeah, it's no question about it.
Yeah.
Asuka rules. She was one of the stars of the pandemic era, which was not a very easy thing to be a star in. Like, you would think like you could stand out, but it was just so hard to be entertaining in that time. And Asuka did it. So yeah. I will go further. Nick said and say wrestling history. I feel like more people know Asuka than someone like me. Yeah, I honestly believe that she is the biggest Japanese wrestling superstar ever. Over the Great Muta. I think so. And maybe that's just because I don't know Muta that much. I know him to an extent. I watched him some and all that. I know a big name in Japan. I'm not in Japan.
And in WCW, you miss his run a little bit because he's there in like 89.
I've seen him a few times. Yeah.
He does show up a little bit later on. Yes.
Yeah. And I've watched some of the older stuff. And again, I'm not knocking Muta at all. I'm just saying generation wise, it's not for me. That's not fine. Me. I just didn't see it. So
Great Muta was like, he was one of my favorites going up, and that's why. You
I
know,
understand he was a big deal. I'm not,
yeah,
but from my perspective, based on my knowledge of wrestling, which is not as same as everyone else's, that's how this works.
yeah.
Asuka is the greatest, the Japanese superstar of all time.
I'm not disagreeing with you there either. By the way, yeah, I think you might be right.
Hey, the fact that Nick is actually agreeing with that,
Yeah,
kind of crazy. Muted with the Hogan of Japan, yeah, and
yeah.
literally just retired last year or earlier this year, was it?
Last year, Nakamura retired on last year, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, okay, because he wrestled Nakamura. That's right.
Yeah.
Trish is someone to. I'm sure Trish is going to pop up on this list. I'm sure she's not getting left off.
Well, so that's my. So I think,
of course, acknowledge the Horsewoman, but as a perfect anti as Asuka put women strong. Yeah, absolutely. Like, yeah, that's a great valid point there, Fat Laces. So
there's another thing that we don't, and I hate to even bring this up but it's just, think about like who was in charge. Vince is in charge of WWE, and let's be honest, there really hasn't been a woman that's been positioned as one of the top women in the division who wasn't, by Western standards, beautiful. You know what I mean? And
voluptuous and beautiful.
Right, I'm not saying Asuka's not, because she absolutely is, but she's not by like Western beauty standards, by Vince McMahon standards. She's not like like a supermodel, right?
That's not what she's built on.
Right.
That's the best way to put it for me. Like, and she's not built on like, hey, she's beautiful, that's why she's here. She's there because she's really good. She doesn't present herself that way.
Right. She's just an ass kicker.
Yeah.
And you see the way that Triple H books her in NXT. She was undefeated, absolutely one of the most versatile workers there the entire time, had great matches against everybody she was against, put over Athena in Ember Moon at the time in in their last match, even in a loss in NXT, to bring her to the next level. Comes to the main roster and was just as dominant. Wins the first women's Royal Rumble. There's just so much that Asuka's accomplished, and in my opinion, I just don't think that in ring wise anyone comes anywhere near touching her.
Oh, and I would also like to point out a thing about Asuka. During Becky Lynch's run as the man on the lead up to that WrestleMania, Asuka beat her clean at that Royal Rumble, and not one person had an issue with it. That's impressive, because again, you're looking at a hot star in Becky that everyone was clearly behind, and to have her lose, that was ballsy to have Asuka do that. To have her not only win, but win clean.
Yes.
And nobody complained, because that's how great people acknowledge Asuka to be. That's so difficult to do today, to be that just people are that accepting of you, no matter how the booking goes. Like, that's crazy.
And that's why, to me, I just think in ring wise, no one touched her, and that's why I had her for a different position. So I have her for the in ring version of this.
We'll get these comments, and then we'll go into the in ring, and you can gloat about her, because she deserves. Oh, if that's your case, but
I have to give you my choice for because you did all around. I'm sorry, you did greatest all time, right?
Yeah, yours was Becky, right?
I did Becky, right. So. Right. Okay. So then, we'll go into wrestler after that. We can go.
If you have something more to say about Becky, by all means, I'll sit back.
No. You're right. We did Becky. Oh no, I know. No, we did. We covered that. You're right.
Yeah, you're good. You're good. So Inigo's, I know Gail Kim won't be picked, but I think she deserves her flowers for carrying it. So if I was a TNA person, I would probably agree with you. But again, TNA's just been one of those things. I don't know what it is. I just can't stay invested in it. I wish I could. Because the TNA fans are the best wrestling fans, and they just watch their stuff and they enjoy it, and they don't crap on anybody. That's amazing. But I'll watch a pay-per-view, I'll fall in love with the show, and then I'll tune into the weekly stuff, and I just can't do it. I don't know what it is. It's weird. Ron says, I love April Jeanette. Hey, AJ's good. I loved her. I do think her run is a little bit overrated, though. I think because of the fact that she stood out in a time, I don't know, it's a weird. She's great. I'm not downplaying her at all, and I really hope Punk doesn't get mad at me for saying that. But I do think her run is just a tad bit overrated.
So here's the thing. I think that she was the best during a very down period.
Yeah.
That's what I think. And I think that if things don't happen the way that they happen, and she stays around for another 2 or 3 years, I think she's she might be on one of our lists.
Yeah, I think her run was too short at a time that was too bad.
Right, and I think that if she just waits that little bit of time now, instead of just having someone like Paige to work with, she then gets to work with the horsewomen once they come back up. Then I think we're talking about AJ Lee in a completely different.
Definitely, and I was an AJ fan at that time.
Same here.
Like, I like her. I'm not downplaying her at all. I think she's great, but people kind of like it's not what people perceived it to, or what people try to say it was. It's just what it is. So, but again, she's great. Love her. I don't think she stands out in today's game as much as she did back then, though. That's my kind of whole point with I think the overrated thing.
It was a lack of competition, and she did great with the competition that she did have. Don't get me wrong, but it's hard to you're only as good as your dance partner, and if all of your dance partners aren't the greatest, then it's hard for you to be, it's hard for you to show how great you really are. I think that there is a point now where if AJ comes back for like a year or two run, it could cement her legacy. I think she could add on to it like what Trish did, because Trish comes back, she has this whole big feud with Becky, and it's like, damn, okay, she can hang now. Like if she was around now, she still would be able to hang, because that was everybody's perception of Trish. A very good wrestler during a period of time where there wasn't a lot of other women's wrestlers to compete against. So I think that if AJ did the same thing, I think that makes AJ look even better.
My only issue with that would be is if she was booked like a legend, because I don't think she is, and I think that might put a sour taste in my mouth, honestly. That's my only, like, if she came back and just played ball, like, I think CM Punk is the perfect candidate. Like, if you're gonna come back as an old person and come back, you should win some matches, no doubt about it. But I think you should be losing the right matches, and I think Punk plays that line pretty well. And if she was to come back and do something like that, yes, but I don't want her winning matches and all that stuff that I just don't think she has no right winning, because again, I don't think she's on that level, and it's not her fault. It's just like Medusa, it's just unfortunate timing for her, and that's my whole thing with it.
Yep.
AJ Lee is that wrestler where she basically by herself, surrounded by a bunch of models. Again, unfortunate timing. But let's move on to the next one, and we did greatest superstar and the greatest all-around performer. So next up, let's do the best. Which one do you want to do?
Well, I did wrestler, right? Oscar was my pick for wrestler. So if you want to give your pick for wrestler.
For the in-ring.
In-ring, yeah.
Okay, this was the most difficult one for me. Because I would put Oscar here. She's not giving two faces here. She can't have two faces on the Mount Rushmore. I'm sorry, I can't do it. And I'm just thinking, like, I was going through the time. I'm like, okay, I can't take anyone pre-Four Horsewomen and put them on this list, because I don't think any of them match up with the women of today. I just don't. And I think it's not any fault of those ladies prior. I think they just didn't have the resources to do it. And that's a shame, because someone like Molly Holly, I think, could probably have made this list. Big Molly Holly mark. I think she was great. But I just don't think they had the resources to make this list. So that's unfortunate. And then I started thinking, okay, well, who is there? Charlotte? No, that's not going to happen. Bayley, I just don't think she has that thing that's gotten her to that final level like the other ones. Sasha, absolutely not. I don't think she really understands wrestling the way I perceive it to be. That's how I'll put it. Her style is different than what I perceive wrestling to be, so she doesn't make this list. Is she great performer? For sure. Like she does a lot. Like, and she's really talented, but she's just not my cup of tea. So I was thinking, like, who could it be? And then that came down to Io Sky. I think Io Sky is Asuka's probably closest match as far as level. She's like, when I watch Io Sky, I'm amazed at the stuff she does, and how fluidly she does it. It's almost effortless to her. I like that when she gets on the top ropes or even on the cage, it's never a thing where she's setting herself up. And this is a very small detail, but I can't stand when they get up there in those moments and like hesitate and pause and wait. Io gets up there and goes. It's a very small detail, but it means the world to me. She gets in there with anybody and just shows out.
Yeah.
And she's been able to stay up there with Rhea Ripley and Bianca Belair. We talked about this at WrestleMania, and not be overshadowed. And she can't cut promos like they do. She's not out there parading herself around like Rhea. I'm sorry to put it that way, but that's the truth. But do what works for you. I'm not hating on it at all. And I don't think she has that charm that Bianca does, but her charisma is next level. And again, her work is it's beautiful. It's like watching art. She is a fantastic artist in that ring. And I think her in-ring is what gets her over, which is a very rare thing in WWE. Like, it's very rare that WWE says, hey, go wrestle and get over. And it works. And Io has been able to do that. I loved her stuff in NXT. That's where I became a fan of her. I've went back and watched some of her stuff. She was in Lucha Underground having matches with Penta. Great stuff. Like, and she's just gotten better. So she's the closest thing to Asuka, and that's why she's getting this spot. But that's no shot at her because she is great. And I think she's getting my best all around, or not all around, my best in-ring worker out for this Mount Rushmore list.
I find it hard to disagree with that. Like I said, I put Asuka on in that position. And Nick, you mentioned, I think that for a lot of people, it's, Bull Nakano's probably there. There's also Manami Toyota is probably up there as well.
I don't know who that is. I know of Bull Nakano. I don't have a great enough catalog to rate her, though. That's my thing.
There's a few women's wrestlers from Japan that I understand that probably should be on this list.
Probably.
But if you do, if I think that for us, because we're not as exposed, I think it's telling that both of our choices were Japanese wrestlers who crossed over to America and became, something much bigger. And I think that that's indicative of that style in Japan being way more over at a way earlier time than it is here. Women's wrestling was treated as a very treated as a very serious thing in the 80s.
Well, I was going to point out, I watched Halloween Havoc 95, and they had a Bull Nakano tag match with 3 other Japanese wrestlers, and I was blown away by it. They had the resources. When I say they didn't have the resources, I'm talking about the American, because that's just my knowledge on things. So the American women did not have the resources that those women had, and that's why it was hard for me to find anybody in that era. Again, there were definitely people that were worthy had they had the opportunity to get better. This is another great one. I can't even believe I missed this, but Ivory. It was another one. She was good. I just can't put her on that same, because the talent is so different. So no fault of her own, though.
Right. And Ivory is another one, by the way, who, if you want to talk about crossover before there really was crossover, we see the show Glow on Netflix. Mm-hmm. The original Real Glow, Ivory was in Glow. She was a trailblazer before anyone knew what trailblazers really were. A crossover star before a crossover star really was known. She's another one who doesn't get, she's in the Hall of Fame. She's getting her just due, thankfully, but I feel like she doesn't get the attention that a lot of other people do get. But again, it's an era in, U.S. women's wrestling where it wasn't taken as seriously. Yeah. It was ladies wrestling. You got a match on the card, and most of those times, those matches included Sherry Martel, the Fabulous Moolah, Leilani Kai, or Judy Martin. And that was it. It was like that was your women's division.
Excuse me. I'm not gonna knock you, Nick. I'm not. Again, It's just all about my catalog. It'd be like, hey, if I watched one movie in the history of movies and said this is the greatest movie of all time, I'm an idiot. Like, you can't take my advice on that. So if I'm sitting there saying Mol Nakano is this when I literally couldn't tell you 5 matches she's had, that would be silly of me to do. And that's literally all this is. And I think wrestling fans need to understand that not everybody's catalog is the same as everyone's. So if they say this, that's just what it is. It's because of that reason. It's right. It's nothing of that. But I did like this comment. Sorry.
And recently, just recently, I was talking to somebody about like my top 10 list of favorite Ring of Honor matches, and there was like 3 of them on there. They're on there for sentimental reasons for me because I was there in person in attendance. Sometimes with wrestling, you can't, everybody's list is going to be different because certain things are going to mean different, things to different people. And I definitely know that this last category that we have, we're going to disagree. I know for
sure, because
you know that in my mind. I think you know who I have picked, and I know.
Oh, yes, I do. Oh my God, I'm gonna kick you off the show, dude.
And I knew it wasn't gonna be your pick.
You don't guarantee it. I'll bet.
But I knew that she wasn't gonna be your pick. But
oh yes, Tony wasn't my pick.
Yeah, and that was the other thing is that I was like, I wonder who Jimmy's gonna pick because I know he didn't pick I know he didn't pick who I picked, and I also don't think he picked who I think he probably would.
Who do you think I picked?
My runner-up is Chelsea Green.
Okay, so no, it's not that. But we'll get into it after this comment because I do think this is a great comment by Fat Laces. Are we going to look back 15 years from now and compare Julia, Stephanie Vaquer, and Roxanne Perez as a class as good as the O2 OVW class? Abso-freaking-lutely.
Yes.
Thank you. Because those 3 girls are it. They are your 4 horsewomen. I hate to compare them to that, but that's the next evolution right there. Those 3 girls are about to just run rampant for the next 10, 15 years.
I think
they're only going to get better. That's crazy.
I think you're 100% right. I think Jordan Grace is going to be like that outlier too, like where everybody's going to mention them 3 because they started together and Jordan came a little bit later. I think Jordan's going to be like the other person that I think is going to be just complete breakout women stars in the next 5 years. They're going to be who the division is going to be built around.
Hey, Mickey is a good shout. Again, yes. I just don't think to me, she's closer to that Trish Stratus level where like, yeah, she's great. And she's been a huge part, but talent wise, I don't know. I haven't seen her TNA stuff. So maybe I'm just missing that part, but she's great. She's part of the 2nd greatest women's program of all time. She's one of the best women like of that era. She's absolutely one of the best women. Mickey's awesome. I again, just my personal opinion. I just don't think she's on that top tier level of in-ring performers. And let's see. Hello, gentlemen. Okay, he asked what our pick. He says, "Hello, gentlemen. Interesting question. What are your picks so far? Greatest superstar of all time. I have Becky Lynch. Albert has Chyna. For best in ring of all time, I have Asuka, and Albert had. No, you had Asuka.
Yeah,
I had Io Sky, and then for greatest all around performer, he had Becky Lynch, and I had Asuka. We are now on our 4th and final decision for the Mount Rushmore. Literally the best wrestling today. I'm not even gonna disagree with you. But now we're at the best character work, however you want to say it, in the history of professional wrestling. And mine is going to be a little bit controversial. So since we already know what Albert is going to be and how wrong he clearly is, I'm gonna let him go first.
All right.
Gush away.
So I'm going to start this off by saying I think that the 2 best characters in women's pro wrestling are currently wrestling right now. And I think that if the person who I'm going to give this award, in my mind to, wasn't so good at what she's doing right now, I just don't think that there's anybody in the history of pro wrestling that has played a better character than Chelsea Green has. I think that Chelsea Green has done a phenomenal job at being this character who is so pliable and flexible and has the ability to make anything work, can lose a million matches and still be taken seriously enough to be the first women's champion, women's United States champion, have a great run with it, go back to not being as serious and can be taken seriously the next minute. I think it's just a testament in my mind to how great Chelsea Green is. But
that's a good one.
Toni Storm has done something in women's wrestling that we've never seen before.
Oh, you're doing my head in.
You look. You can disagree with it all you want.
I know. I'm just having a hard time.
We see how well you said Trish and Mickey are part of the second greatest story in women's wrestling ever.
Yeah.
As much as you dislike Toni Storm, you've got to admit her and Mariah May are number one on that list.
Real quick, I do not dislike Toni Storm. I want to make that clear. I'm a fan of Toni Storm. I just like Mariah May better.
Okay,
and I clearly agree. That is the greatest women's feud story of all time. 100%. If you disagree with that, go live on the other side of the planet. I don't want to be anywhere near you. That's how clear it is to me that is. I'll let you finish before I even say more, though.
Okay. There was a point where I saw this gimmick in the first week or two, and I went, this will last for about a month and it'll just fall flat. Like I just didn't have anything. And then she cut like 2 promos. I went, oh wait, she's got something here.
Yeah.
And then she went full bore and she went completely into it. And they started going black and white. And she started getting into it. And the more she dug into this character, the more I dug this character. And I felt that like wrestling has a tendency to add people to things or subtract things, from people that are working. And I think at first I went, oh man, they're going to add Luther as the butler. This is going to be stupid, but it worked. Then I went, oh man, they're going to add Mariah May as the protege. It never works good when they try to recreate something from the beginning. If they're going to make her like a 2.0 and to be like the next version of her, this is going to suck. And I was wrong. It worked. Every time people, said, okay, well, this is as far as this character can come. That's it. Toni herself comes out as the normal Toni Storm and then morphs back into this character. And it works so seamlessly. There's no Undertaker of women's professional wrestling. There's no, I guess Alexa Bliss is a good shout in terms of character work as well. I think that she's done a really good job at being a version of Chris Jericho, where Chris Jericho was able to always keep himself new and reinvent himself and keep himself very similar to where he was. And even with Alexa's character work as, like with the Firefly Funhouse stuff, she still kept herself grounded enough and close enough to who she was to not fully change. But she did an excellent job, in my opinion, at keeping that. But I think that Toni Storm has gone to another level when it comes to character work. And I just don't think that there's going to be anybody in women's wrestling that is going to be talked about character work more. I don't know if anything's going to be received better than what Toni Storm's doing in AEW. Even if you don't like AEW, you can't you get not at least, even if it's not your cup of tea, you can't at least not understand why people are drawn to this and how over she's gotten because of it.
Okay. Real quick. I'm glad you brought up Chris Jericho and his ability to do what he was doing, because it's going to play into my pick because it's very similar. The thing I don't like Toni Storm's character work as Timeless Toni was fantastic. And as far as like a period of time, I agree with you. My problem with Timeless Toni Storm, though, is it has a shelf life. And to me, it expired the moment she beat Mariah May. Now, when I watch her, it kind of just seems like it's jumped the shark and she's just going out there dropping one-liners to pop virgins. Like, is it funny? Yeah, but it's like, how does it?
To be fair, isn't that what The Rock used to do?
Hey, and did I give Rock any kind of love on ours? I actually argued with your boy about The Rock being on his list.
Oh no! I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm saying,
So I'm just letting you know that I'm being at least consistent. I'm at least being consistent, is what I'm saying.
Yes.
So again, her work as Thomas Tony during the Mariah May thing was awesome. Even when she came back and did the evolution of Tony in AEW, it was great. I loved it. But again, the moment that feud was over, I feel like that character became dead to me, which is unfortunate. I wanted to give her an opportunity to prove me wrong, and it just hasn't worked. I don't vibe with it. I used to love it. I used to literally be tuned in to see it. And now I rarely watch AEW because I just don't care about it anymore. I'll go back and watch the clips of her and all that, and it's just like, I'm just over it. So I think that's why I can't even put her here. I do think Chelsea Green has the ability, if she has a career that lasts another 10 years and she's able to maintain the level of entertainment that she gives out, I think she has a real legitimate chance to be in this position. And I did say my pick was going to be a little controversial because you're like, that's not character work. But
I just, before you get in there, I just want to say one thing. It's Chelsea Green's facial expressions for me. I don't think anybody is more expressive with her face in the history of pro wrestling than Chelsea Green. That's all she needs. It's all 90% of her character work is just right here.
Yeah. She's good at it. I'm trying to think. William Regal.
Yes, another one. Again, nothing over the top, nothing crazy. He's not a character, but his character work is so good just for that. It's this,
Yeah, and I don't like Enzo and Cass on. And I don't like Jacob for his promos. I like Jacob because he's a badass. I do like the but again, with Toni Storm, again, it just feels like she's trying to just hold on to this thing, and she's just saying the things because she knows it's going to pop them, but it doesn't go with what she's doing. It literally makes no sense to me, and that's why I'm saying it. Tony's great. I absolutely love Toni Storm. I just think it's time to kind of revert into something else. That's it. And here, Inigo. Tony Stick has gotten old. It really worked with Mariah, but I don't see it working. Yes, that's the thing. That's the thing. So with mine, I need you to remember when we did the men's, I picked Sting because of the evolution of Sting from the moment, boom, to the end, boom, how he was able to just kind of move seamlessly from character to character to character to character and operate at that top level the entire time. Chris Jericho was like right below him as far as that. He was able to just seamlessly change and transition. Boom, 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 boom. He just isn't on the same level as Sting to me. So with that said, I did think this was a funny comment. It's going to give away my answer, but Nick here says Trish is overrated. Sorry. Nick, I can't believe I disagree with you so much on something.
Wow.
And Ron says, I understand why Dave hates the term overrated. We talked about China earlier being a person who broke barriers. We quickly mentioned Sable being someone who helped kind of get women more eyes. Trish Stratus is the one that deserves the most credit for the women's evolution. I don't think anyone could disagree with me there, because if she did not go from manager to main eventing Monday Night Raw, which again at that time had never even been thought of for women's wrestling, but she did it with Lita, and Lita probably deserves more credit than she gets these days, but Trish was the one. And if I go back and watch Trish from the moment she debuted to now, she has seamlessly just transitioned from one part to the next part to the next part. And at no point in time did anything she do feel like it was dramatic or forced. And I might be kind of twisting some things here to get her on this list, but I think a Mount Rushmore without Trish Stratus is a little bit silly. She doesn't fit any of the other spots, but I do think if you meet Trish Stratus, she's nothing like the characters you see on TV. Like, she's not that bitch. She's not that person. Like, she's just a sweetheart person. So I know a lot of people think of character work. They think of like Undertaker, Toni Storm doing timeless Toni Storms. They're like real boogeyman, stuff like that. Bray Wyatt. But she was still playing a character. Sure. And it was a very seamless transition, much like Jericho. I don't think Jericho plays this crazy character. He just plays a version of something, and again, transitioned from period to period to period to period. And Trish has done that, in my opinion. And again, I think it's just insane to think of a Mount Rushmore of women's wrestling and she's not included. I just that's just crazy to me. That's like saying Hulk Hogan doesn't deserve a spot on the greatest WWE Superstars of all time. To me, she was the Hulk Hogan of women's wrestling.
I wouldn't put Hogan on my list either.
Yeah, I'm not talking about wrestlers. I'm talking about the superstars, the greatest superstars in the history of WWE. Hulk Hogan is on that list. You can hate him all you want. I hate him too. I literally just ranted about him on the last Nitro about how much I freaking despise the man. But you're looking at the greatest WWE superstars. Hogan's on that list. You're lying to yourself if he's.
I know.
Yeah. And to me, that's Trish. And she did some really good stuff, like the whole angle with Vince, Linda, and Stephanie and that WrestleMania. Fantastic. Her work when she came in as a manager with TNA, it was really good. Her Mickie James stuff, fantastic. You mentioned it earlier when she came back and worked with Becky. She looked great.
Yeah,
she did really good work. She did fantastic work.
The work she did with Charlotte a couple of years prior to that too was a great feud.
Fantastic. So I have to.
Here's my thing.
You can think she's not a great wrestler, but she's not overrated. It's just not a thing. Like, it's impossible. Like, if Trish never happens, women's wrestling is not where it is today. I'm sorry.
I'm not going to disagree with you, but here's my question. We're talking about now. This is strictly just character, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think I can make just as strong of an argument about Lita being in this position on your list.
Not to me.
I think that Lita. All right. So Lita comes in, right? She's with Papi Chulo. Like, you know what I mean? It was, you know what I mean? Like, that's who she debuts with. This isn't like we're not, like S.A. Rios then gets his own name, and Lita gets herself over by doing moonsaults, right? She then transitions from that character seamlessly into being the Team Extreme version of Lita. She then morphs that into her own thing, where now she's become really the precursor to what we talked about to AJ Lee, right? Like that alt, where if Trish was somebody mentioned it, Trish was more of the Vince, like what Vince was looking for in a star in terms of looks. Lita got over on, her, she didn't need, good, really great mic skills. She got over on her ring work, right? I
think her exotic look had a little bit to do with it.
Yes, I agree.
Because of the time that it was, that was like kind of a new thing, and new metal was a thing, and she was very new metal, and I think her look played it. But it was also she was extreme.
Right.
Her and the Hardy Boys were a perfect pairing.
They were.
Yeah. Now, my deal with Lita, I hear what you're saying, and I'm not saying, like, again, I mentioned her and I said she deserves more credit than she gets. Absolutely. To me, Trish did it at a higher level. That's my thing. And again, I liken it to, again, Sting and Jericho, how the transition from each of her phases was just seamless. And I'm looking at the long game as opposed to the short game. Whereas, hey, you're not wrong for picking Thomas Tony Storm, because I agree that as far as short time frame, no one's done better character work than that. Just, it's not even close. I think it'd be hard pressed to find a guy that had better character work than Tony did in that time frame.
So my thing is that I just know, I don't know if I think that. Okay, so they're both mega baby faces. Let's be honest here. Trish and Lita, right? They're both mega baby faces during that whole.
Okay, here's my question right here. When Trish was the heel, was she better at it than Lita was?
I think they were kind of close. Just look at the reactions that Lita was getting when she was with Edge. I mean, she was.
Okay, was it because she did something that was because was it a real life situation that they hated her for? Or was it because of character work?
Like, what are you going to do? Look, the one with Trish, technically it's almost the same story, right? She's kind of with Chris Jericho, and then she turns because she's with Christian.
That's character work, whereas Lita's was not character work. She really did that in real life, and people knew about it because that's when wrestling on the internet really blew up, and they really disliked her for what she did. That's a difference to me. Like, Trish made you hate her even though she's a really likable person. They hated Lita because she did a very hateable thing.
Sure, but I mean, they didn't have
great. Lita's great. I'm not shitting on her. I promise.
But all I'm saying is that I think that it's the reason why if I want to, like,
yes, as much as
I'm not disagreeing with you here. I think that if you're going to put Trish on this list anywhere, I think she belongs better in the all-around category than she does.
I don't think she's that good of an in-ring wrestler. I think she became a better wrestler, but as far as in-ring wise,
sure. But
this match was with Becky Lynch like 2 years ago.
But that's what I'm saying. She'd be more. I think she has more of an overall than she is just specifically on character.
Maybe, but I don't think she's
on
the level of Becky.
I think you can switch Becky and Trish on your list, and I think actually it makes it more believable for me because I think Becky's character work as the man, and then even transitioning out of that and now it's as a heel and all that she's done, I think is maybe even close to being more impactful than Trish as a character.
To me,
I'm not disagreeing with Becky on your list. I just don't know about the character part.
To me, the Becky changes are not transitional. They're not smooth. They feel like shocks. It's like, boom, you're completely different than what you were last time I saw you. And then she did it again. And then she did it again. So I don't think Becky does bad work. I think that she doesn't do it seamlessly. And I think Trish does. And I think living in a world where we aren't just living in kayfabe all the time and we get to know these people, you can see that Trish was literally playing a character that entire time. She's not that evil bitch that was on TV. She's a sweetheart.
Yeah. No.
Whereas the character work, again, it's not the traditional character work. It is character work in general. And I just perceive the character stuff to be, again, the long game. I look at beginning to end, whereas you were looking at this period. Neither of us are wrong. It's just how we look.
No, I agree. Yeah.
I knew this was going to be controversial but I just couldn't think of anybody that had a career as a character that I thought was on that level. And that's how I'm going to judge this thing. Because we're going to do this with tag teams too eventually.
Great.
Yeah, that's going to happen.
So. And my thing is this: I'm not trying to argue against Trish. Trish was my first big wrestling crush. I've loved her since the second she's been on my television. I've been a big fan of her when she became a wrestler and respected her for working her ass off and everything like that. I'm not disagreeing with Trish being on this. I'm glad that she's on our list.
The spot. That's what you're.
To me, it's just a spot. Yeah. So again, I'm not. I know that like Ron said, Trish will prove you wrong at Evolution. She's not going to prove me wrong. She's going to prove me right because I think she's great.
Yeah, and this is what I was trying to say. Universal. Again, it was more because they're like, no, kind of like with Hogan. They boo Hogan now because they hate the man because of things he's done. They hated Lita because of something she'd really done.
Right.
So the few comments I did see where they said Hogan's not on my Mount Rushmore. I'm not saying he's not on your Mount Rushmore, but if we're talking about the 4 biggest, greatest superstars in the history of WWE, Hogan is on your list.
Even in the history of pro wrestling.
You're lying.
Yeah.
You're literally lying. And
I don't care. Like if you want to be completely completely objective and you've watched every company and everything from everybody and you want to be like, hey, this guy from Puerto Rico is okay, that's fine. But if you're going to talk about American wrestling, it's Hogan and Austin and then it's everybody else.
Yes. I mean, I would, again, on that list, if I had to choose one and it was all professional wrestling across the world and I had to just pick one from WWE, Hogan's the guy because he got it to where, and if you know anything about me, that's a very shocking thing to say because of the fact that I've always perceived Austin to be bigger, but Hogan had a much greater impact on all of professional wrestling. Like there's not a name in the world that had a greater impact on professional wrestling as far as wrestler goes.
And people forget he did it twice.
Yeah. So sorry, guys.
I hate Hogan's.
I hate the guy.
And look, let's take all the personal stuff away.
He's not on my Mount Rushmore either.
Right. Let's take everything personal that he ever did away for the reason why I hate him. I hated Hogan before he did all of that. Yeah. I hated Hogan. Everybody loved him. But even still, one of the first videos that I ever did on our friend Ron, Dave's channel, was I argued that Hogan is the bigger star in professional wrestling than Austin. And I hate Hogan. And I had to argue for Hulk Hogan. And my argument was, if you want to talk about every metric that there is for pro wrestling, Hogan did it more and longer than anybody else Because yes, okay, he had the run from 85 to what 91 in the 92 in WWF, really, and then he takes a break for a couple of years. He goes to WCW, and he
came back to WWE at one point, and they immediately realized because they couldn't sell tickets for WrestleMania 9
in '93.
He gets announced, they start selling tickets.
Right. In '93, he still goes for the world title, right?
And he's like, I have all the power.
And Dave, so Ron, I did concede because I hate Hogan so much, so I couldn't. Dave made too many good points for me to just say, you know what, fine, I'll give it to Austin. But the reality is that even after Hogan comes back, yes, he flounders in the beginning at WCW, and then he creates he's a part of the greatest angle in the top 5 angle in the history of pro wrestling. As much as I dislike Hulk Hogan, you can't take away his accomplishments.
Okay, real quick, and then we're going to sign off. I have to go. Universal, I'll just go ahead and give you mine based on the same way we did this one.
Yeah, I can give you mine.
In ring, all that. Mine, superstar of all time, is Stone Cold Steve Austin. In ring of all time was Kurt Angle. Best character was Sting. And then all around, at the time it was Shawn Michaels. I've since changed. It's Kevin Owens. And that's my Mount Rushmore based on these things that we're going off of.
Yeah, mine was biggest and greatest of all time was Stone Cold. In ring was Brett. Character was Undertaker, and all around was Macho Man.
Yeah. But as far as I have so many different versions. I have the best ring workers of all time. I have just my absolute 4 favorite. Like, there's so many different lists on this. So
yeah,
but yeah, and right here I'm gonna
do high flyers. I mean, there's
Hulk
a lot.
Hogan sucks, but Hollywood Hogan is brilliant. Terry Bollea is a scumbag. My sentiment exactly. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys for joining us. We had a lot of comments tonight. We had some new people getting involved tonight. I really appreciate that. And then Universal says mine is Bruno, Flair, Lesnar, and Stone Cold. That's a good list. I was very close to putting Lesnar on mine at one point, but just overall, he took too big of a gap for me. But that's that.
Remember, if you miss any of this, we're on Spotify. You can go find
exactly. Go watch us on Spotify, and then you can also watch the WCW Monday Nitro, Friday Nitro reviews on the other channel, Friday Nitro Review. If you like WCW, that's where me and this guy be doing the thing over there, going back, watching every Nitro and reviewing it. So with that said, we will be back next week, hopefully at some time. As soon as I get my schedule and we figure things out, we will let you guys know. I think Wednesday might be a good time, depending. Should work. But that's the show. Thank you guys. We'll be back next week. Love you very much. Listen to us on Spotify.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean.